You know, the reason why I wanted to do this, as you guys get up here, we literally have 2 minutes, we're trying to stay on time. The reason why I wanted to do this is not because we have CEOs. We have a lot of great CEOs in this industry. Now, I will tell you, these are kind of some of the best, but I wanted it not because of name recognition, not because they paid to be here, because they didn't. What I wanted is because these 5 CEOs, they're cool. Like, they really are. If you get to know them, if you talk to them, which I have, they're cool. They're really, really cool. Like, they get it. They actually care. I mean, they run big corporations. I get it, but they care. And I just can't really say it. And I told them the same thing when we met them on Zoom. I said, all your personalities are just so good for our industry. And I'm really, really excited. No one's perfect, including me. But what we have is we have been blessed with them taking their time and flying here. And I'll be honest, I don't know how we could have anybody else or how we could be shown more support for what we're trying to do than have these people come and legitimize what we're doing. They did. They didn't have to do this. This is a first-year event. Most of them don't know me. But what I did is we said, can we do this? And it was instantly yes for all of them. Side note, the big I did tell me no. I asked them twice. They are the only ones that actually refused. So I just wanted to throw that out there just so that everybody's clear on what's going on around here. But without further ado, well, I want to say this one more thing. This is being led by Peter MacDonald, and it was for a specific purpose. I've seen Peter do other panels. He's one of the most professional people and knowledgeable people I know. He cares about this industry. He's fair and he's firm, and there's no one better to do this than Peter MacDonald. It was never a question. And it's tough for my big ego to get over that because I was wanting to do it. But Peter's a better preparer, and Peter's going to deliver us a better panel. So thank you very much, and put it all together for Peter MacDonald and all of our executives.
All right, we're going to get right started here. Thrilled to be here together, moving the industry forward for independent agents. My name is Peter MacDonald. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wunderite, which is the fastest and easiest way to complete insurance applications, accords, and supplementals. I know that we're all excited to be here today and hear from the leaders in our industry. And so when I told people that I was going to do this panel, you know, I got a lot of emails, I got phone calls, I got direct messages. People had gripes, they had customer support questions, they had product feature requests. And the reason that we're all here today is to move the industry forward. The reason I wanted to moderate this panel was really to move the industry forward. And excited to get started. Like many of you, I was an insurance agent for 7 years. And I've used products from every one of these companies on stage today. With the exception of the PIA, I was involved with a big I, but a huge fan. Totally necessary of what these organizations do for our industry. And I wanted to bring my opinion as a moderator from both someone who was an agent and is also now understanding what it's like to be building technology. So without further ado, I'd love to get started and have an introduction starting with none other than Reid Holzworth.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks, Peter. Reid Holzworth. I'm the CEO of Ivans. I fell into this industry a number of years ago. As an insurance agent, producer, started an agency, franchised that agency, and then built a company during that process called Tech Canary, which we launched, and we became a technology company, which then we sold to Applied Systems, and Mr. Taylor Rhodes over here gave me the honor, almost going on 3 years now, actually, it's crazy, as CEO of Ivans. So, yeah, glad to be here.
We can just go in order, so go ahead.
Sure. Hey, I'm Taylor Rhodes. I'm with Applied Systems. I've been with Applied just over 4 years. New to the insurance industry before that, more of a technology background. Signed up for this because I think this industry has a lot it can do with technology. I think the attraction to the problem and opportunity is, as we all know, insurance is a ubiquitous industry. It touches everyone's lives, and yet it's sort of under-indexed historically to modern technology experiences, using data wisely, and other things that I think we can all do to make the experience better for both independent agents as well as for insureds. I see a few of our customers and clients in the room, and I just wanted to say thank you to the Applied clients in the room. We really appreciate y'all.
That's great. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Zupon. I'm the CEO of Vertafore. By way of background, I have spent the last 2+ decades in enterprise software. So I started in power and utilities, oil and gas, and then came into insurance. I have to tell you all, I love working in insurance. I have been the CEO of Vertafore for 7 years now, and I think the industry is super powerful. It is filled with just terrific people who want to work together, and there is just a ton of opportunity that we have to leverage technology to move things forward. So that's why I'm at Vertafore, and that's why I'm excited to be on the panel today.
Great. Hey, well, thank you, Amy. I'm Jason Liu. I'm the CEO of Zywave. Won't go through my whole background, but I've been running large-scale software companies for about 20 years. Before Zywave, which I joined about 5 years ago, I had run one of the larger sales automation software companies beforehand. So you'll hear me talk a lot about producer enablement and kind of all things about growing top line, which is of a passion of mine. The only thing I'd just add around Zywave, and I know many of you know Zywave, but I think much of the thinking of Zywave has kind of been outdated, kind of around the content and the benefit side. When I joined 5 years ago at Zywave, we've tripled the size of the company, made 10 acquisitions. Now we have built out the entire software suite across all commercial, personal lines, and benefits. Now we have like 18,000 agency customers and 1,000 carrier customers. And I think it's safe to say we're one of now the 3 big platform players in the agency space. The only thing I would add is, though, our view is a bit different. We have an AMS, but our focus is really on the front office, is about how do we help agencies grow top line, acquire new customers, and seller enablement and quote issue bind. When we chat through this, we have a lot of joint customers at Vertafore, a lot of joint customers at Applied, and really, as I said, we're kind of focused a lot on how we grow the top line.
Good morning, I'm Mike Becker. My background is a little bit more on the policy side, but more regulatory, legislative policy. I've been on Capitol Hill in Washington, worked in the pharmaceutical industry representing their non-prescription interests, very exciting before, like many of us, I'm sure, have the story of how we just fell into this industry, which I did about 17 years ago. That's how long I've been with PIA. I've been in the CEO role for about 10 years. PIA represents independent agents in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., and Guam. And we inform, we educate, we advocate, and we protect independent agents, their interests, and help them become more successful and increase their stake in the market.
Awesome. So a lot of bright minds on stage. You reminded me I got to start my timer. We're going to be having quick answers because we have a limited amount of time and we have a lot of voices we want to hear from. And we want to get to some questions from the audience as well in a few minutes. So just to start off with, we're having an industry-first conversation around customer experience, customer journey. If you haven't noticed, the reason for the different colors in the booths in the area when you walk around is each of these companies in this area serve a certain purpose in the customer experience. Jason has said that this is a Switzerland, which is a neutral place to move the industry forward. I think it's fantastic and much needed to move the industry forward. So Mike, this is an industry-first conversation. We're having this panel. I don't think we would have had this conversation 10 years ago focused on customer journey and customer experience. Why do you think we're having this conversation now?
I don't think we've ever experienced the rate of change that we're experiencing now, the level of acceleration, the tools, the opportunity that is out there, but coupled with the expectation. I think you go back 10 or 20 years and we talked a lot about what's desired and what customers want. It's now what they expect, and it's what's expected of independent agents, and I think it's critically important that we do have this industry-wide discussion on how we can accelerate independent agents forward in terms of adoption of technology and how we can move them all forward and better serve the customer.
So yeah, Reid, thank you, Mike. Reid, you owned a construction company, you owned an insurance agency, and I think very early on built an agency management software on Salesforce, so ahead of the times in a lot of ways. Why should we care? I mean, right now, if you buy insurance, like maybe you shop it every couple of years and it's this abstract policy that has very little customer interaction. Why should we care? Why should agents care about the customer experience?
Well, I think, when you say customer journey, I think about just customer in general. So it's like, when I hear this, I think about why should we care about the customer, really? And our interaction and how we're touching that customer and that customer comes to us, that's customer journey. It's funny, like, Hanley and I were debating it earlier. Like, we can debate on what's the customer journey for personal lines versus commercial lines. Okay, non-standard versus preferred versus high net worth, small versus large versus medium, complex, small, all of that. All different journeys. And when we talk about technology, technology is just there to facilitate that. It's to help us along with that journey. And the beauty about modern technology is it allows you to customize and you can build and put on these other modules and things, which allows you to build your own unique customer journeys for your customer. That's what gives people a competitive edge. So why do we care? I don't know, because it costs 7 to 9 times more to acquire a new customer than it is to retain one, right? I mean, we can go there all day. Insurance is the most expensive acquisition cost as an industry. On average, it costs $900. Like crazy. Like, I don't even know if I believe that. $900 to acquire a new customer. So why does it matter? It matters because it affects your bottom line. But I think, like, when we talk about this stuff, I always want to point out, it's not just about the tech in customer journey. It's not like the customer lives in the technology the whole time. You get to pick and choose how they're interacting with technology. And by you picking and choosing that, you're allowing them to do what they want to do, which is obviously most successful for you.
Thank you, Reid. So obviously the agents here do care about the tech journey. I think that's why they're here today. And I do want to take a minute to pause and put a QR code on the screen and just ask, what do you want to ask the panel? We know that you care. We know that you're here. So please take a second, even if you don't have a question right now, scan this. This will give you a quick one-question form where you can either answer it now, what do you want to ask the panel? Or maybe as we're chatting and a question pops in your mind, open that tab back up that you've left open and feel free to ask a question. I don't know if we'll be able to get to everybody, honestly. But if we have some time, we'll try and take a question or two potentially. So I guess starting with Amy, a majority of Americans, and this is actually a pretty interesting point I love to talk about with the IA channel, a majority of Americans, 61%, they choose to buy property and casualty insurance through independent agents. So together, we being independent agents, the companies in this stage, we touch nearly every American every year. And that's a really unique statement to be. It's a unique room to be in right now. And I think that customer expectations are growing. And in order for us to win both individually as our agency and also as an industry, as independent agents versus direct writers and others that are selling insurance, we need to have a better customer experience to win together and to move the industry forward together. Amy, what has your organization done in the past 12 months specifically around customer journey? And I want to ask the same question, Amy, Taylor, Jason.
That's a great question. I really loved what Reid had to say about technology is really the enabler for that customer journey. We've done a lot. We think about the customer journey, the end customer journey all the time at Vertafore. We spent a lot of effort around automating small commercial quoting, right, to enable people to actually do that. We spent time on mobile devices and self-service capabilities for the end consumer. But probably the thing I would highlight the most that has been the most impactful has been our continued investment in the Agency Zoom platform since our acquisition 2 years ago. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's a sales and service automation platform. It was built from the ground up with an automation-first approach, which is a ton of personalization to enable you to help drive growth, both in sales and in managing customers. This last year, we launched a new feature called Service Center. And Service Center basically takes that same loved, easy-to-use capabilities around sales and customer management and brings it to the service lifecycle. Those customers that are actually leveraging it have even used the phrase like game changer to me, which is super awesome. Fundamentally, the best part about it is we built it in partnership with some just terrific agencies and some terrific agents. So it wasn't done in isolation. It was done to empower these folks to actually deliver the type of customer journey that they want to. So if you haven't seen it, I would check it out. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Want to piggyback on that, Taylor? Or not piggyback, but same. What has your organization done in the past 12 months to improve the customer journey?
Yeah, when I listen to folks like you, I often hear, I feel the need to become more digital. And when I hear that, I sort of pick it apart and I say, what do you mean by that? And I think what you mean by that is the point of reference for a customer experience has now changed. There used to be this paradigm where kind of business-to-business technology could kind of suck, and your consumer experiences, as the cloud kind of exploded in the late 2000s and made online experiences simple, mobile, immediate, that paradigm and separation between, well, I can have a great consumer experience and poor business experiences has kind of come together. And so when I hear you all talking about becoming more digital, you're really focused on competing in the way and the places that your consumers actually need to meet you and the experiences they expect from their consumer experiences now in the business world. So we're really focused on this paradigm that we call the full digital round trip of insurance. And that is not to replace the agent. That's to put technology in places where we can help you elevate up what you do, where you spend your time. One of the most important focuses for us over the last 12 years has been in simple commercial lines business and taking our Tarmac acquisition and our Indio acquisition with native capabilities in both our AMSs, Epic and EasyLinks, and making that a fully integrated experience where you can do the full commercial lines round trip. Who has an appetite for this risk? How do I submit data simply to the carrier? How do I return a set of competitive quotes? How do I bind a piece of risk? And do that in a way that actually helps you make profit on those smaller commission dollars in the simple commercial lines, because we know it's important to a lot of your growth. And so that's an area, just one example of really trying to fulfill that digital round trip of insurance that we've been focused on.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd like to add maybe is, if you think about the customer journey being kind of the customer acquisition, and then you obviously, customer prospecting, then you have acquisition, then you have servicing. If you think about it, historically, there's been, in my opinion, almost an over-focus on kind of the operational side of customer service, which has really neglected the actual interaction with customers. And so this has been a huge passion of mine. I think most recently, I told myself and Don Bailey, who is the former CEO of Willis and president of Marsh, wrote an ebook around the sales revolution. It's on our website, you can download it. But it really talks about how the whole industry is, the shift in paradigm of engaging and interacting with customers is changing now. Obviously not just digitally, but also towards solution selling, more consultative selling rather than more relationship selling. And so I mention all that because Zywave has kind of acquired about 10 companies over the last 5 years. And we've kind of built out the entire customer journey with a particular emphasis on customer prospecting and customer acquisition. And also customer servicing from a digital standpoint is how do you actually create that digital relationship with your customer beyond just your personal one. And so, as I said, there's a lot that goes into it, but I think that the message I would just describe is that I think the industry is changing from kind of an inward focus towards much more of an external focus and much more of a consultative type situation, and all of us technology providers need to then create the type of software that would enable this to happen.
Absolutely. So I think back to, how do we win as an industry? How do we win as the independent agent channel? Majority of Americans choose independent agents to buy their P&C insurance. We win, we grow as an industry when we win more. What's the top thing that we need to do to help IAs grow as an industry? And Mike, I'd love to start with you from your perspective, customer journey, winning as an industry. What are you hearing from your members? What's the impediment to growth for them with customer journey?
So we survey our members all the time. We partnership with some trade publications to do national surveys. So we rely on a lot of, specifically not what we think, but what we know, what we hear from them. When it comes to adopting technology, we've heard over the past several years some answers that won't surprise you. It's how do you, quantify the ROI? Where do I begin? How do I hire for it? What answer has been on the rise and took our #1 spot this year is it's insufficient training. And we see kind of this great divide because when we talk to a lot of the technology companies, they said the training's there, but the agents aren't, they aren't connecting with it to some degree. But the lack of integration from, implementing it properly into your workflows, we hear a lot of agents say, hey, I was overpromised. I was told it would do X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't. Turns out it probably does in some cases, I'm sure. So I think we need to bridge that gap to make sure that the integration is there, that the tool goes into the AMS, that it's being properly implemented, and everybody's being properly trained to utilize that tool.
Absolutely. I think, if you think about football needs to maybe reduce concussions. Think about the car industry. We have to standardize car chargers. Everybody wins. Everybody wins in that industry when you move that forward. I think, Reid, what are your thoughts on what do we need to do to move things forward for the independent agent channel?
I mean, it comes back to technology, but I'll bring it back to my world. I really believe for us to really grow in this industry, it's all about connectivity. I believe that connectivity is the lifeblood of innovation. It sounds like a thing that you'd say in a sales cycle or something, but I really do believe that. When Taylor was just talking about the digital rounds trip and all that, you're just talking about integration, and when you start to have these conversations, it all comes back to that connectivity. And we're in a very complex industry. I mean, it's very simple for a captive carrier to do the things that they do. It's not that simple because we're independent agents, and there's so many carriers. So connecting them all up, bringing them into these systems, having platforms around that, adopting that technology, really understanding it, some of the stuff we've already talked about, and just going after and doing it.
Yeah, I think we've all been there where we've tried the Geico experience and we're like, how do they have my address? How do they have my vehicles? How do they have all this information already? And I think part of it is, as the independent agents, it's just fragmented. I mean, there's 38,000 agencies that are out there. That's a lot. It's like 3 for every Starbucks. It's a huge industry. Reid and I were trying to figure out how many independent agents are, or how many insurance carriers are there. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of who knows? There's a lot. There's thousands. And how do you get to have a unified, streamlined experience when you have so much fragmentation that's happening across the industry? It's something that I think a lot of us wonder as agents. It's something that a lot of us as technology companies that are here today think about. How do we connect? And want to move on actually to open API and connectivity. So I think Amy, Jason, Taylor, you all committed to open architecture. I think, Amy, I was at NetView in 2019, Accelerate, and you said it there and elsewhere. You said, and you can put this on the screen, we would shortchange our customers if we didn't allow them to build their own platforms or personalize what they're doing to better serve their customers. Taylor, when you kicked off 21, what to expect in 21, you said to expect that Applied is focused on building technology that allows for greater openness, flexibility, and accessibility for our customers, and to open up the architecture with our open API technology that will make integrations easier for our customers to access their data, connect their AMS with other systems and tools, and allow us to offer more partner integrations. Jason, as recently as August of this year, with a press release on API product expansion, you said that APIs have played an even more critical role in the industry, enabling seamless integration between various systems and platforms. Our philosophy on open architecture emphasizes the importance of industry partnerships and collaboration. So clearly, this open API, Reid, this connectivity is a big theme. You're all talking about it. Mike, just want to take a step back. What does open architecture mean to your member agencies? What % of your members understand these concepts?
So I think the ability to integrate a tool into an AMS is incredibly important. And without that, you have all sorts of risk exposure, E&O risk. But I'll tell you this, I don't believe that agents are waking up to start their day at 6 in the morning thinking, gosh, I hope that open API is ready. They're worried about their 11 a.m. offsite prospect appointment, the big renewal that they have coming up. Their number one challenge that they're telling us that they're facing this year and have continued is the hiring crisis. But what they do want as it relates to this is they want to go to work, they want to make sure that they're properly staffed, have systems in place to be profitable, and that their technology works. That's what they want. But at a micro level, are they worrying about the open architecture or API? No, but that's their expectation that it works.
Yeah, so I guess thinking, again, the 3 of you who've talked about these open APIs quite publicly, would love to get your opinion on, and from your perspective, where is your company on the journey with open architecture? Are we there yet? If not, why not yet? What would you say to the agents in the room who want to connect to the APIs that are out there? What would you say to the technology vendors that are out there? What would you say to the competitors that are out there that want to plug in and talk to your software systems?
Who are you starting out with?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just jump in. I'd love to hear it.
Go ahead,
You want to go first, Taylor? Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason. That's fine. I'll go. I don't care.
Why don't you go first, Taylor?
Hey, I think openness needs definition. Openness to me means integratability. There was a period of time before cloud where systems were closed, there were walled gardens, they tried to do everything for everybody. Cloud proliferated the ability to actually access technology at a lower cost, and APIs were one of the biggest new ways to integrate in a lightweight, fairly fast, lower cost way. So when I say open, what I mean is integratability. All right, now the question is integrate with who? Applied, one of the biggest things I heard when I first got here in 2019 was, I can't get to my data. Data gets stuck in the system, it's stuck in a form, it's not structured for me to be able to access it. You have old means, the beloved bulk data extract, to get at your data. And we took that as one example of a use case where you all don't care necessarily what it means to have open APIs. You care, can I make use of my data? And so over the last couple of years, for us, one of our big lifts working with our partners at Google, who are an investor in us, has been to build our Epic data lake and be able to start to structure data that comes from policy and claims and rating, et cetera, and put it in a place where you can get to it, and this is where APIs come in a fairly lightweight way, in a well-documented way, where you can access those if you have the staff and capabilities, and if you can't, it's our job to productize access to that data in modern reporting that's manipulatable, drill down, et cetera, so you can see your business in different ways. So what I care about is, are we actually helping you run your business better by having access points into the technology you use? That can be integrating with your CRM system better. That can be access to your data. That can mean us selecting a partner somewhere where we're not going to build a competing product and say, we will integrate with that partner so that you can have interoperability between your systems. So that's what we mean by it, and we're on the journey.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, this is an area that I have enormous passion around. I know, I think when I started 5 years ago, Amy and I talked early on, and I had a lengthy conversation. Amy and I both kind of talked about the whole concept of open standards, open API, and I know when Taylor started 3 years ago, we had a similar conversation. So this has been an enormous area of passion that I have. And I think part of it is also self-serving, because where Zywave sits is we have about 6,000 agencies on our AMS, but we actually focus more on the tools that complement an AMS around the front office. So we have, 40% of our customers are Applied customers and 40% are Vertafore customers. So we have to live in a heterogeneous world. And so what I would say is that there's kind of a lot of focus on the API, which is understandable. You want to basically build a REST API. But I think the challenges or the headwinds in the industry are a little bit more entrenched, and they really fall amongst three specific issues. One is the majority of systems that are out there are legacy systems, client-server architecture, et cetera, that are not REST APIs. And so we as an industry have to figure out how we get you all to kind of upgrade to really the most current technology, which allows you to take advantage of REST APIs and do all the stuff that we're talking about. The second issue is around data structure. Right now, a lot of the data that are in AMSs and other solutions are garbage. They're different formats, they're different syntaxes, et cetera. How do you get really a standardized set of data in your own agency, which you then can move that data around? Zywave made an effort about 2 years ago to really take all of our products and build it onto a common data structure and data standard precisely for this issue. And then I think the third situation is a bit more nefarious, which is I think there's a widespread agreement at this level that we need to open up and be more open standards. But I think you have a lot of folks that work in our companies who are just not being good actors or not being cooperative. And those are the type of things that we collectively need to root out, are folks that are not helping the situation or trying to block, that are trying to prevent open integrations, I think really don't have a place in this industry. There's really got to be an effort made to try to work in more of a partnership fashion between the large vendors and also some of the smaller players out there as well.
I love it. Well, you've heard it here. Thank you. Who else wanted to chime in, if anybody?
Can I chime in too?
Yeah.
By the way, I love the orange chairs. Can I tell you that? Yeah, I love the orange chairs.
Sponsor those chairs, Amy. I know it.
Had nothing to do with them, and I love them. So, you brought up that quote from 2019. Since I joined 7 years ago, we've been committed to an open architecture at Vertafore, period, right? I say it to my teams all the time. I want my customers to choose our solutions because they want to choose our solutions, not because they feel like they have to, fundamentally. And that means we need to enable you to do what you need to do to solve the business problems you're trying to do, whether that's integrating with my own systems, whether that's integrating with other systems, whether that's integrating with something that you built on your own, that's your secret sauce that makes you a unique agent, right? And to do that, we're kind of pretty simple in our strategy. It's open APIs that are modern and well-documented that people can use, right? On top of that, we have a partner program. It's pretty robust. We got about 50 partners today because there are many times where a pre-built integration using those same APIs is actually very valuable because it's valuable to more than just one customer or two. And so we open that up. So at the end of the day, you can connect our APIs to other systems, you can connect them to your custom stuff, or you can lean into third-party pre-built integrations. Because as Taylor said, at the end of the day, we're trying to solve business problems. It's not technology for technology's sake. We're trying to empower you to actually do the things that you need to do to make yourselves most successful.
Thank you, Amy. Reid, want to just kind of get your take. You know, you're one of the select few entrepreneurs that have successfully built an AMS, Tech Canary. You know firsthand how critical it is for agency management systems and more broadly for the innovative technology companies that are here to connect to Ivans. Ivans is number one at transporting standardized data, including download from insurers, and it's kind of like a must-have. So what is Ivans' North Star? You know, you're running the organization, and where are you on that journey?
Yeah, so you know, what I said earlier was connectivity is the lifeblood of innovation. So what does that mean? You know, and going back a little bit on the API conversation, you know, APIs are really important for us as a technology company to be able to connect to efficiently. By the industry adopting APIs, when I'm speaking through my lens, carriers truly leverage APIs. It opens up connectivity to those companies. So our North Star is to continue that on all levels, and we're doing that. It is so important. But not only that, and I didn't say this earlier, standardization is a big part of that. That's a real problem in our industry. Woo! That's what's up, right? You know, it's blue, it's purple, it's orange, it's, you know, all these different colors, and it comes out, and then we have to take it and we have to translate it into whatever, yellow, right? And there's a lot of problems that causes in the industry. And so, you know, I want to solve real big problems. Having this industry truly connect and having a platform around that for technology companies to come to. So if a technology company says, I want to build something in insurance, they come to Ivans and they use our tools, because you don't have to have that huge heavy lift of convincing a carrier first and foremost to connect, then doing all of the work, then all the standardization. You can build as a technology company what matters most to your customers. It's end user features and functionality. It's the workflow, it's the customer journey.
Back to the theme of independent agents winning. We win more when more carriers download. That means back to the, you know, comparing to the direct writers. Like, if they have a streamlined flow. We win more when we have to do less work. What are you doing to connect with more carriers? What are you doing to connect to more technology vendors?
Yeah, we've done a lot. So we have a new person that leads our partnerships, Rob Marinello, and he's done a lot with our policy administration system companies. Like as an example, we did a lot on the smaller carriers. So if you look at the tier 1 carriers, which are the top carriers, are Nationwide, Travelers, Hartford, Liberty, those are top. The smaller carriers are where you don't see a lot of download. So we worked with IMT, which is a small policy administration system. And for those who don't know what a policy administration system is, that's like what an agency management system is to a carrier. So IMT is, as an example, really small micro carriers. We built into their technology, we worked with them, we built a plan, and we went to market with them. We put on over 100 carriers last year with IMT alone. We did the same thing with Brightcore. You know, we're working on building things into these carriers' platforms like Guidewire, Duck Creek, as well as the small ones, so that these carriers can go live. But I'll say, I mean, honestly, like most carriers are on Ivans generally. Doesn't mean that they're using everything across Ivans, but most of your carriers these days are downloading.
So for those in the audience who are like, hey, my carrier's not on Ivans, what can these agents do to get their carriers on Ivans?
Great question. It's a really great question. So the reality is that we can go and tell these carriers all day how important this is, but you're their distribution. You're the one they listen to. You're the one that drives the revenue into that organization. You as agencies, you as producers can talk to those carriers, get those carriers to move on to this stuff. We also, this is new for Ivans in the last year or so, we also spun up a team, which is an agency demand team. So we have a team at Ivans now, human beings, that every day all they do is they talk to agents to help them find the value of the free things that Ivans offers to you. So we'll help you, by the way, if you come to us. We'll work with you, say, hey, you can turn all this stuff on. But we also work with those agents to talk to the carriers about what their needs are. So we'll actually facilitate that. So long story short, tell your carriers what you want. We're here to help.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Reach out to your carriers. Reach out to the Ivans demand team.
100%.
So each of these companies, you know, make acquisitions that are on stage. We talk about partnerships, open API. I think, you know, Vertafore, Agency Zoom, QQ Catalyst, Risk Match are some in my mind that stand out. Applied, you have Tarmica and EasyLinks and Indio, amongst others. Zywave, big ones with MyEdge and Sysware's partner platform. I guess before I get to these acquisitions specifically, Mike, I'm just curious, how do your members view the M&A ecosystem that we have as agents?
What we've seen is, first off, an incredible level of disruption. And on the upside with some of the M&A activity, it's enabled agencies to be part of something larger, additional financial resources that's actually empowered the purchasing and implementation of technology to improve that customer journey and internal workflows and so forth. So as it relates to technology, there's been a plus side that has provided additional resources and financing for these sorts of tools. M&A activity also results in startups. So folks start agencies, they sell into something larger, and then they'll start something. Earlier this morning we heard Keith Savino, who's had a long, great career in the industry. He's on his 5th agency. He's sold many, he started. So there's been a small tick or a small slowdown in some of the M&A activity, but what we are seeing is these startups come, and these startups need the guidance and resources and to bridge that gap, particularly the newer folks that are part of this industry in terms of understanding how technology works and how they can integrate it in. But there is plus sides as it directly relates to technology, in terms of M&A activity.
Thank you for that. What are your plans with the recent acquisitions? Maybe Amy just asked, about Agency Zoom, or any that you want to speak to. But what are your plans with Agency Zoom?
Yeah, no. So Agency Zoom, you heard me talk about it already, but we are like full steam ahead with Agency Zoom. When we made the acquisition 2 years ago, our #1 strategy was to bring this terrific solution to as many agents as we possibly could. And that meant deeper integration with management systems of Vertafore, AMS 360, and QQ. It also meant deeper integration with non-Vertafore solutions. So we're doing that as well. That's kind of first and foremost. I think second, with Agency Zoom, you heard me talk about what's awesome about it is it's very much automation first focused in its strategy, and we are bringing that to other parts of the life cycle like servicing, and that's really exciting for us. So stuff has come, more stuff to come around that. And then I'd say the last thing is, one of the things people love about Agency Zoom is how much you can personalize that journey at the end of the day. And we are 100% maintaining that, but also adding the ability now to scale that for agencies that have multiple locations. So keeping that personalization in the local agency, but being able to support it. So from my perspective, it's full steam ahead on Agency Zoom, and it's being really well received in the market.
Yeah, Jason, partner platforms, this is where that was a big shift that I thought in the industry. Tell us about the plans and the thinking going into partner platform and the plans there.
Yeah, I think, obviously Zywave, we've been on a pretty significant acquisition spree. We've acquired 10 companies over the last several years, spending about $750 million buying companies. So we've been pretty active. We did buy Partner Platform, which is an agency management system, obviously commercial. We have an agency management system for benefits as well. We do obviously have invested heavily in Partner Platform. We're actually moving it from client server to a complete web environment, which is going to be released shortly. But I want to emphasize, we have about 6,000 agencies on our AMS. But really what we see the AMS is a part of the puzzle. We do think that there are some core pieces that also have to be connected to the AMS. One is the sales and marketing automation platform, which has obviously been Zywave's strengths over the many years. And we do actually include quoting as part of that. So we've now acquired a number of the large kind of comparative rating companies. We do about $100 billion in quoting when you look at personal lines and commercial and benefits. But we also have another piece which is around the client interaction, the digital client journey, which I think is a pretty not really well thought of area, but a very important area is as the world goes digital, how do you support them? And so these pieces we brought together into an integrated solution, but if someone wants to use an AMS from Vertafore and Applied, we're very happy with that, and we'll integrate in them to give them a real kind of robust customer experience. I think the only thing I would just add about partnerships, and I'll let kind of Taylor, because I know you've been pretty active as well, is that we announced a pretty substantial partnership with Salesforce.com late last year, and I think it's something to really watch, because I think that's kind of an exciting development in the industry, is kind of the interest you have from kind of non-traditional kind of insurance providers in our space.
Taylor?
So I mentioned before this visual of the full digital round trip of insurance, and we use that every day to think through, do you build something that's missing? Do you buy something because it's better than what you can build or in a shorter period of time, or do you partner? So we think about all three of those things. And when we choose to buy, it's to fill in a crucial missing gap in that full digital round trip, where we either think we're not good at that, we don't have those skills or that capability, or it might take us 3 or 4 years to do that. And here's an entrepreneur who has found product market fit. We always talk to you before we make an acquisition and say, what do you love about this? Why are you buying it? Would you value it if it was more integrated into your AMS instead of another point solution you have to manage off to the side? So all of those things go into it. When we buy one, I think we have an obligation to make it more valuable for you. And so when you think about our Tarmica and Indio acquisitions, or EasyLinks, or PolicyWorks in Canada, all of those entrepreneurs are still part of Applied. They're still here. And I think that's one of our things that we've developed a mental model on over the last few years is bring them in. These are the people out there challenging the status quo, building things that people are liking better. So we bring guys like Reid in. And by the way, if you want to know what it's like working with Reid, it's like putting a pirate in charge of a very important part of your business. But Reid is doing something much bigger in the industry than he was doing at Tech Canary. And oftentimes we find we're a great platform. You have a clever insurtech entrepreneurs, built something people like, but having trouble getting to scale, because this industry does have a lot of logos out there for people to choose from. So we can bring them in, put them in the platform, integrate the solution, and put that entrepreneur to work on a bigger part of that digital round trip of insurance, which makes us better for you. Tarmica, Indio, key part of that digital round trip for commercial lines. EasyLinks is a kick-ass platform full of innovators for that simple end of the market. Startups, smaller, you focus more on PL and simple commercial lines. PolicyWorks in Canada is key to our end-to-end integrated commercial lines capability. So when we buy something, we have an obligation to make it better and more powerful for you after we buy it.
So thanks for sharing that. I want to change gears, talk about something that came up from a number of agencies when I put this online on social media, which is AI. So, I think ChatGPT started trending around the Thanksgiving dinner table for some of us last year. So this is artificial intelligence, large language models, ChatGPT, Bard. Agents were asking me to ask the CEO panel about AI. And so before I ask you all about AI, I figured I'd ask AI about the CEO panel. And so I asked, what question should I ask the CEO panel with these following CEOs to Google Bard? And I was actually, pretty impressed with the response. It was like, these are good questions. These are questions the agents were asking me. These are questions that I were thinking about. Not necessarily going to run through the list here. But so I guess just more curiously, and I think specifically from one of the people that had commented, they said a large agency owner. He wrote me, I haven't heard anything from my AMS vendor regarding AI. There must be a reason why they've been mum on the subject. I think the agents here want to implement AI. You tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I think they want to implement AI in their agencies today. What are you all doing about AI in your platforms? What are you building internally? Is there some secret project? What are you partnering with? What are you doing that's interesting with AI? This is an open question.
I'd be happy to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I would tell you the good and potentially, I wouldn't say the bad, but the challenge. I think from a good standpoint, Zywave kind of invested heavily in AI early on. So we have actually has ChatGPT in 2 of our products now. So our Content Cloud, which historically was known as Broker Briefcase, part of it's marketing automation now. So in the past, you would actually send an email and you'd type the email. Now you use ChatGPT and you actually can create personalized emails. So if you want to send out 20 personalized emails, you can actually use ChatGPT to do that. So we launched that about 2 months ago. We also have done that in another product. So we're embracing AI and using it in obviously various ways in our products already and put it into production. I would say the challenge for all of us is that AI is only as good as the data. And it kind of goes back to my earlier comments around the data structures and the data formats, is the more we as an industry can kind of cleanse the data, get a consistent set of standards and formats, the better we can adopt AI, because AI is only as good as the data that is underlying it.
Yeah. So I will say we use traditional AI in our products today. So if you use Risk Match, our models that are in Risk Match around whether it's churn prediction or whether it is account rounding, there's a whole bunch of models in there. They're built with traditional AI. On generative AI, right? With ChatGPT and whatnot, it's a little bit of a different story. So we use it internally. We're testing it on a whole bunch of use cases. We use it to write job descriptions, quite frankly, because it can go out there and help you gather a whole bunch of public information and spit out some good job descriptions, and you can edit from there. So there's lots of ways you can use it in your own business today. It has nothing to do with us, right? I'm super bullish on the potential for it inside of systems like ours on the stage. I think one thing that we have to be very careful about and thoughtful is how we approach it, because at the end of the day, it comes down to what data it's using. And when you use these tools, this data becomes public data. Well, we don't want our data to be public, right? And so as software vendors, we take that super seriously. We think about that very thoughtfully. So there are use cases that we can use today that we are working through to try to pull in. There's use cases you can use without us at the end of the day. But it's really important that we all approach this very carefully and very thoughtfully as you think about your data.
I really appreciate that, by the way. I think some of us that are eager to try the latest and greatest, we're eager to just throw everything into ChatGPT and see what comes out. And it's like, wait a minute, what are we sending to the machine? And what are they going to memorize? And we got to be careful. So thanks for the nuance there. Taylor, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be early in cloud computing, and I remember in 2008, when Amazon launched their S3 service, which was their elastic storage. At first it was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. But then you started thinking about the power and how that unlocked developers from the traditional IT model. Traditional IT model was, it's slow moving, I gotta ask the CIOs for some more compute and data and networking to try something that's gonna take 6 months to provision. I'm gonna try something and it's not gonna work, and I gotta tear all that down, and that's expensive. And the cloud said, no, I can go try new things in a very low cost way. I can iterate quickly, I can fail fast, and I can learn. And what came out of that was an explosion of applications that took advantage of cheap compute storage and networking that were very easy to access. And that changed the world in dramatic ways. And I'm not here to be the hype engine on AI. I think we're at a similar potential point where AI, as Amy said, is not new. What's new is generative AI, and the cost of the computing and the chips that make it work have come down to a point now where it's accessible and able to be used in a broad-based way. And so I think there's going to be enormous potential that comes from generative AI. It's like, though, there's an old joke back in the early days of cloud computing, forgive me. It was like, hey, it's like teenage sex. Everyone's talking about it, but not many people are doing it, right? We're in the hype mode right now. It's unclear what you should use generative AI for and what you shouldn't. There are low-hanging fruit use cases. Hey, let's have a marketing content engine that actually understands what you're trying to do and produces a sample piece of marketing content in 30 seconds for you to edit and decide whether you want to use it and send it out. Low-hanging piece of fruit, not complex, fairly safe. There are others, though, where you really have to be thoughtful. And so we're going to be your thought partners. We have already a head of AI. We have an AI engineering team of very advanced people who've been doing this for a long time in the industry. We are building our own interfaces to the different large language models out there. And we're starting on POCs with input from our clients around what use cases will be most helpful. Our point of view is AI will be your co-pilot. If we do it well, it will not replace the human. It will be another tool to put the human at the right place for the right value task at the right time. I would say right now, become a student of generative AI because you need to understand it, but also be wise about use cases where it can be helpful to you and proven versus things that are really early and still need a lot of thinking and proving out.
Thanks. I know, Mike, you wanted to have an opinion here.
Yeah, I want to reinforce what you all just said about making sure that AI is pulling good data. And where we've seen success stories with agencies is where it is pulling from a specific hygiened data set. But I spoke to an agent this week who is in this developmental phase with an AI tool. There's a lot of AI tools out there that is not really, it's pulling from the internet. And by the way, AI has been known to be wrong, and it's been known to be offensive. It's pulling, all these crazy social media posts that are out there, and that's what it's using to learn. So it's something to be mindful of. But this particular agent had an AI answer the phone of an insured. It was a recorded message that I listened to. I'm not sure I would have known I was talking to a computer. The insured was lamenting over buying a car, needed proof of coverage, and the computer was sighing with them, saying, I can't believe you've been at the dealership this long. In this day and age, do you believe that it's a computer? But the interesting element of it is the regulators have taken note, and we've been brought into some conversations because the laws, to sell, solicit, or negotiate insurance, you need to be licensed. It doesn't say you need to have a heartbeat, though. And regulators are now stepping in, insurance regulators trying to figure out how you regulate this. And this particular AI agent has taken pre-licensing classes. It's getting ready to get licensed in its state. It's going to get 100% on the test. And then they're going back to the regulators to say, well, here it is. It's licensed, and it's a computer. So there's so much unknown out there on it. But
always something to be afraid of if you're an agent about who's going to come take your job, right? But I think these models also struggle to do 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
So I think you are all in a unique position. We're talking about AI. What else is coming? You're in a spot where, from your vantage point, you're hearing the market. You talk to a lot of agencies. What are the biggest challenges that agents have? What are the things they're asking us to solve? Like, what things should we do? What's your plan to solve them? And what should the agents be doing about what's coming?
The number one issue that we hear, in fact, our survey year over year, the number one issue, 50% of agents that responded. Any guesses what you're experiencing, your number one challenge is? People? Yeah, hiring. And that's still a huge challenge. And I think agents are trying to figure out how can you embrace the technology to build efficiencies and address some of the understaffing issues. But they're also trying to figure out still, how do we bring technology into the agency? And I think the greatest pitfall that I've seen, I see this over and over and over again, is that shiny object syndrome, where you go, you see this really cool thing, and that principal brings it back to the agency, and you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And as opposed to flipping this around and really evaluating your workflows, your personnel, your capabilities, your goals, building a business plan for this, setting a budget, setting expectations, putting the training in place, and going out and then identifying what potential solutions are out there. And there still is a misunderstanding of that approach out there. We're trying to bridge that gap. We started a technology council, a new one this year, to really work with technology providers to say, this is what we're hearing directly from our agents, and how can we bridge that gap and guide agents down the road.
Thank you. Any other quick comments before we move on to how much agents are going to be spending?
I'm sure that, look, I think I can't have a conversation in the market without the topic of data coming up.
Totally.
It's connected to your comment, Mike, about people and scarcity of talent. Data is critical to us making better decisions, being more effective in sales and marketing, being more effective at renewals, understanding operational efficiency down to the agent or CSR level. It is something that this industry has performed poorly on in the past in terms of structuring and making data useful. And I think that's one of the biggest ways we can help the independent agent compete and fight and win against the big guys and level the playing field, is actually making data available and useful to them.
100%. I agree completely. It's the next horizon for the independent agent. So the independent agent, the premium going through that channel is rising, but we're taking it away from the captives, right? The directs are also rising. They're rising faster than we are. What we need to do to really change that course is good data, right? And it's not enough just to have good data management in your own agency. We, all together, have to find a way to get you better data in an automated way, all the way from the carrier, from the wholesaler, in the MGA, in premium finance, in all the different directions. That's the next horizon for the independent agent. And that's what I find, I hear on the stage, and I find all over the industry. There's a lot of good people that are working to make that happen, and we need to stay committed to that.
I'll say it again, standardization. It's important.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's maybe just around this topic of market. I think, Mike, I'd love to talk about producer enablement. It's an area I'm passionate about. But this is kind of a I think the question was really, Peter, about like, what are we seeing in the market? And I think this is meant to be helpful in my comment, is that, I have been now, obviously involved for 5 years in the insurance industry, have met, hundreds and hundreds of customers. And, I oftentimes see really a group that's very forward-leaning and really, technology savvy. And those ones I really enjoy speaking to. But oftentimes you have certain agencies that are more complacent, that aren't as interested in kind of learning kind of new technologies. And their feedback and when you talk to them is oftentimes, well, things don't change in insurance. Like, insurance has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and things don't change. And I think what you're sensing from all of us is a sense of urgency that things are different now. There is disruption and change going on, partly technology, things like AI, et cetera. But also, I would encourage you to think about, ultimately it's about money. And what you've seen is a massive influx of private equity and venture capital, primarily private equity, into the agency space. And what that does is it forces efficiency. You know, I've been a creature of PE now for 20 years. I've been in boardrooms with the PE funds, and they obviously have a higher bar in how much they're willing to tolerate from a complacency standpoint. And so they're driving these agencies, the larger agencies that are PE-backed, to be more and more efficient. And that obviously, I think, is kind of rapidly increasing the need for innovation and change in the industry. So thought I'd just throw that out there as just something that I've seen. I've definitely seen in my 5 years a more noticeable growth of private equity, and then the implications of that is much more kind of drive towards efficiency from some of the large funded.
I want to talk about money now, because to your point about efficiency, I want to know, like, the question is, I want to get quick takes on this, is are agencies going to be spending more or less on tech in 3 years as a % of revenue? There was questions I was glancing through from the audience about what's your monetization strategy for API usage. That was an interesting one. I think according to Marshberry, the best agents spend 3.6% of net revenue today on equipment and technology. The average agency spends 4.8%. Now, of course, this is defined as, best is defined as highest EBITDA as a percentage of revenue. So these are the most profitable agencies. And Jason, to your point about private equity coming in, making agencies more efficient, you know, based on 3.6% today or 4.8% of net revenue on technology, quick takes, are agents going to be spending more or less money in the next 3 years on technology as a % of revenue? Maybe just go down the line, starting with Reid.
More.
There we go, simple, thank you.
100%. I mean, yeah.
But I think to caveat that, there's a lot of data that says you can spend more and actually reduce your % of revenue. The winners in the best practices from Reagan actually spend more dollars, but over time, it becomes a lower percentage of their revenue.
Yeah, and you say that that's based on their profitability. What about growth? As far as valuations are concerned, there's a lot of consolidation in this industry. What are they looking at? Growth.
Yeah. And to Taylor's point, it'll be more, but it'll be about the same percentage of revenue. It would be my kind of caveat, because at the end of the day, when you make decisions on technology, they should drive value for your business.
100%.
That's not always cost reduction. Oftentimes that's in the phrase of growth, and it's either getting more customers or keeping the ones that you have, one of the two, right? But that's what technology is supposed to be about, fundamentally. I'm not surprised that the most profitable agencies spend the least, right? There's a lot of shiny object syndrome. Mike talked about it earlier in our industry that happens, and I think that's why. Mm-hmm.
Can I just, one corollary that I think is really important. So technology is never done. It's a core part of your business now, or it better be. Don't think about your tech spend only on the bits and bytes and the licenses you buy. The best agencies who get the best value for money actually have a person or people who are responsible for best practices for keeping up with the power that is built into your systems every single year. The truth is, folks, the biggest problem in software is the majority of you and other people in every industry do not use what's available to you because you don't keep up. And you get trained once, your skills perish, you forget over time, and you haven't made it a core competency to actually spend money on keeping up with the tools that are available to you. And so when we look at the best practices agencies, that is a fundamental core competency they've developed, and that helps them get a much better return out of the tech spend.
Jason, your take, are agents going to be spending more or less?
Yeah, not surprising. I mean, obviously it's unanimous here. I would say definitely as much or more. I think the one thing I would add to the conversation is that, you know, I think Mike, you mentioned that the number one issue is people, not having enough people. You know, one way to solve that is making your people more productive and also using automation. And so I can't see the trend changing, in part because of that major reason. So.
I agree with each of them and their personal anecdotes. So.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to hear. I mean, everybody's saying agents are going to be spending more on technology. Mm-hmm. But I think it shouldn't come as a surprise. Like, I think if you look at your own household budget, maybe you have a subscription to Dropbox or you have a smart thing, like a smart thermostat. Like, people are spending more on technology in general. We all wear computers on our wrists, or we have phones, computers, and our supercomputers in our pockets, so it shouldn't come as that much of a surprise. The consulting reports definitely do show that independent agents probably have underspent comparatively on technology compared to, for example, banking. But so I want to think through, okay, maybe we're spending more in the future. With spending more, what challenges do we have, you know, delivering better experiences? So I think, just talk about myself for a minute. I was kind of a bit of a Luddite. I wanted to fight the man and not cave in to all the notifications on my phone and set up Apple Pay. And then I was talking to my mom one day and realized that she had Apple Pay. And I'm like, what am I doing building a technology company that's all about customer experience, customer journey? And I personally don't even have Apple Pay set up. So I set it up. And I came to love it. I came to love the little ding at the cash register, how fast it was, even though money was rushing out of my wallet. And I'm a dual citizen to Sweden. I went to Sweden this year. And for the first time in a lot of travels, I literally didn't exchange any money. I pretty much made every purchase from my phone. I mean, that was truly an interesting, like, just mind-blowing experience. Like, I never had to exchange money. I just bought everything from my phone without even thinking about it, even though I'm in a totally different country. And I just can't go back. And so I think as consumers now, we're used to that. We have Apple Pay, we have Netflix, we can buy anything in the world and have it delivered to our door within a day or 2 days. It's amazing. What challenges do we have in the insurance industry delivering these best-in-class customer experiences? Customers are expecting this. You know, what are the challenges that we have in the insurance industry for delivering these experiences?
Legacy technology. I mean, you know, this industry is a vertical industry, which means it's big, but it's not big enough for tons of players to come in and spend at scale, which means that carriers have sat on legacy core systems for a long time. The agency side still has a lot of legacy technology. Those are hard to work your way out of while you're flying the plane. And sometimes they can create the brittleness or the lack of connectivity or the hard points of integration. That's one challenge. The second challenge, as Reid said, which we can't undercount, is this is a complex industry with two sides, and lack of data standards and lack of connectivity standards make it challenging to build those end-to-end solutions. That doesn't mean we can't build great point solutions or parts of the journey. It just makes making the entire journey like you would expect it if you were ordering groceries off of Amazon a bit more challenging. So those are a couple things on my mind all the time.
I would say, I echo what Taylor said. I think the number one challenge is the amount of stakeholders we have. It has to all line up really fast, right? We talk to the customer, the agent has to find the right carrier for the right coverage, for the right price, or go to a secondary market, or sign up some premium finance. Like, that all has to happen. And what the customer ultimately wants is a fast and easy experience, right? If we can't figure out ways to make that complex interaction faster behind the scenes, we're gonna struggle to deliver that immediate, fast experience that people are looking for.
I think adding to Taylor and Amy said, I think the only thing new I'd add, or maybe new but different that I add, is that, you know, I do see more and more agencies starting to segment your business into like small and mid and large. And definitely, I think all of us are on this path of, you know, small commercial, small group is increasingly going to be digital and fully, or at least mostly automated, which is, I think, increasingly more the experience that you were describing, you know, Peter. I think the challenge obviously is with mid and large group, you have all the other complexities of market appetite and all that other stuff. And so you're not gonna see an end-to-end automated experience. There's gonna be areas of efficiencies that we're all gonna have to collectively solve. But I just encourage you, as you start thinking about your business, thinking about it, you know, start segmenting it between, you know, kind of small commercial, small group, and then mid and large. And actually have different kind of buyer journeys for both of those segments.
Yeah, I think meeting expectations is tough. I think at the end of the day, I mean, you're right, people want it right here, right now. You know, from the time the Wright brothers got a plane in the air to the time we flew across the Atlantic was 25 years, a quarter century. And now we evolve and, you know, in 15 minutes, something's outdated. And to try to meet the various expectations that customers have is tough, but I think it does need to be balanced with, you know, we're protecting people's most prized assets. And we need to be using these technology resources to deepen that relationship and show the level of expertise and care that the independent agent has for the insured, and not turn this into insurance into a cheap commodity where you just, you know, buy it like a can of tomato soup off the shelf. And that balance, I think, is really critically important as the industry evolves and we introduce more technology into it.
I want to just take a couple questions from the audience, and I'm just kind of glancing through them. I'm putting the QR code back on the screen. I have a few here I'm looking through. One of the ones that came through, and we chatted about this a little bit in preparation for this, which is, you know, what are your philosophies on working with technology vendors outside of the ecosystem? There's a lot of new tech vendors here. We're talking about the challenges of legacy, the challenges of fragmented parties. What are your philosophies on working with technology vendors outside of the ecosystem?
Is that question about technology outside of Vertafore or technology outside of?
I mean, it doesn't specify, I suppose.
So the bottom line for us, I mean, we're open, like what we were talking about before. We publish our APIs, they're public, our customers can leverage them in the ways that they need to. We respond to any and all partners who want to have pre-built integrations. We prioritize them based on customer asks and customer needs and conversation with our customers, but we're definitely about supporting innovation in our industry, not about trying to hold it back.
Yeah. One thing we haven't talked about today is cybersecurity, and that's an excellent example of partnering with companies outside the ecosystem. Our job as your partners is to create safety that protects your data and protects your brand in the process. And those are things that we can't build ourselves. They cost far too much money. So partnering in ecosystems like cyber and bringing in the appropriate tools and capabilities and vendors into a seamless solution for you is a great example. Others are, look, Google's an investor in Applied, and we will heavily continue to lean on Google technologies. They've already spent billions of dollars on inside of their cloud for not only things like cyber, but AI and big data, et cetera. So I think this happens all the time. And if you're not taking advantage of the hyperscale experts in different areas, you're never going to be able to spend enough R&D dollars or have enough time to deliver value. So I think you better be partnering outside the ecosystem.
I can share from my experience, and thank you for that, Taylor, in integrating with agency management systems on the cybersecurity front. You'll say like, listen, we're setting it up. We need to get the password for this login credential. And somebody will have a password like summer 2023 that unlocks every single piece of data they have in their agency management system. And it is absolutely important, to be aware of. That's like, there's a lot of data. We got to be careful. So definitely appreciate that. Any other thoughts on, I guess maybe moving on, actually. Another question that was from the audience, what is one of the frustrations or one of the challenges in working with independent agents that you encounter that maybe could be beneficial for people, for agents just to be self-aware? Like, what are some of the challenges that they may not have insight into that you all experience?
I'll go. For me, number one.
That was quick.
Adoption. It's adoption, though. It's adoption at the end user level for me on all products. I'll just stop at that. Adoption.
I think there's a chicken and an egg problem in this industry, which is, you go to carriers with ways to do connectivity and data standards, and they say, sounds really cool, but I want to see agency demand first. And then you go to agents, and they say, sounds cool, I need all the carrier markets on first. And they look at each other, and they both know that they should be doing this for the good of the industry, but nobody will move first. That's a frustrating element in this industry.
It's hard.
Peter?
There's nothing frustrating about agents, by the way.
Can I ask a question for them?
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. Oh, don't give it to them. Don't do it.
No. One of the things that I've found growing my agency is that it feels like the technology is built for the lowest common denominator agent. And we have some of the most innovative agencies in the entire country sitting in this room. And I think, and even knowing some of them, they share this frustration. And I'm just wondering how you manage this, because sometimes we'll see improvements coming, and for you guys, it's like, look at what we're doing. And for someone like me and my agency, I'm going, that shit is 10 years old. Like, I'm way past that. Like, here's, so I'm interested how you navigate making decisions and rolling out improvements when I'd say the bottom 60% of our industry is complete Luddites who will never adopt anything you do, no matter how cool or easy it is. And then you have, I'd like to put my agency in this category, highly innovative, always leaning out front, and it feels like you guys are always behind. And that's not a judgment. That's
Ryan, is this a question? What's the question?
I
mean, it's just like
yeah, how do you do that?
No, it's okay, but what's the question? Like,
how do you manage picking product developments when, if you build for the bottom 60%, you'll never actually address the needs of the people in this room?
Good question. That will be the only one, Peter.
it's okay. So just to restate, the question is, how do you build leading experiences when there's some bottom section of customer agencies who will never adopt? Agencies that aren't upgrading.
I think that there's always going to be segments in the industry, and there's going to be the bleeding edge folks. And oftentimes those people are underserved, right? It is a fact, because I can't make good R&D decisions and sell it to 5% of the industry. Right? It's a poor return on investment for my investors. But that's not an excuse not to innovate. I think you would find also that there are things going on that would be a good fit for what you're doing and let you focus on your points of differentiation and not have to build everything. But I think to your point, if it's true bleeding edge stuff, look, a lot of the things we'll do in AI for a while will fall in that category, and there may not be a mass market, but we better be working on them because sometime they are going to become mass market. And so it's an absolute tightrope challenge, Ryan, that is a real conflict and a real tension in your R&D budgeting, and there's not a perfect answer. I would also say that you'll find that there are vendors out there, smaller InsurTech folks, who are able to be more nimble and play with new things because they got a white sheet of paper to start from. And oftentimes you're going to partner with those things. Your risk is, who do I bet on? Are they going to be around in this interest rate environment? Are they going to get funded? That's a real challenge in this industry, is that betting on the latest thing has been hard to pick. And I know you've probably experienced that. Yeah, go ahead.
I think we obviously, all of us have large customer bases. I think we have, as I mentioned, about 18,000 agencies. So obviously we all encounter the same challenge of where do you segment, and how do you prioritize your new functionality. The only thing I wanted to add to the conversation is I think what we've done at Zywave, and I assume Amy and Taylor would corroborate, that there are certain areas you do kind of forward lean. Like in the case of Zywave, I mentioned we're leading on the front office. So prospecting, we've done some really magical things with MyEdge and marketing automation to do really intelligent segmentation and smart driving of campaigns and prospecting. With digital quoting, which is a huge area, comparative rating, we've obviously done some really forward-leaning things. We've also acquired a business on the MGA carrier side called Clarion Door, and so we're doing some really forward-leaning things. So I would say that, instead of looking at everything like at one, monolith, there are clearly areas that we are emphasizing and pushing the boundaries from a cutting-edge standpoint, and each of it is basically the personality of the company that's behind it.
And maybe one thing that I would add is that segmentation is super important. And like we say it as one word, but we spend a lot of time thinking about the segments in the market, what we're investing, who we're investing for, what return we're expecting, quite frankly, right? And then we divide and we conquer. So like at Vertafore, we serve the largest of the large, right? And the smallest of the small, 1-person and 2-person shops. The same teams don't focus on both of those ends of the market, right? We make those segmentation, and then we call them tech-forward agencies, right? What we're trying to do is make sure that we can enable tech-forward agencies so that we can enable you to do the things you might want to do outside of us. Well, perhaps we catch up, right, along the time, and that's okay. We're willing to live in that world, and if we can enable you to do that, I think we can both be successful together, yeah.
We have just a few minutes left. I think one of the questions that came up, and I think is quite an important question these days, just on the leadership side. Everybody's changed to remote for a period of time. And I think some of the challenges that came with that is mental health. And I think it's running across the country, it's happening in schools. How do you as a leader deal with, the mental and emotional health issues of just, having a lot to do, and then also like running a company and keeping, making sure that your people are mentally in a good spot?
I always get asked if there's work-life balance, and I say no. You can't think about it perfectly in balance if you're investing in your career. So what we always try to say is know where to draw your lines and stick to them, right? What are your personal priorities that you're not willing to compromise on? And then we support each other in that. And that's different for people across our team, but it might be family-oriented for somebody, and it may be something else for others. So we always try to help each other say, what are your non-negotiables? And then you've got to be able to stick to those, and we've got to know what those are so that we can help you when you have a non-negotiable and you need to be not working as long, or you need to be out for a while, or what have you. And I think the second thing is honestly, just like what we do is serious, but we don't have to take ourselves that seriously. So we try to have a lot of fun at work, and we try to laugh a lot. We try to get together and get out. We have a fun budget for all of our employees so they can get out and make memories together, and drink something off if they had a failure, or celebrate if they had a win. And so I don't think you can discount the fact that you've got to create space in life for people to laugh, have fun, blow off steam in the midst of working really hard.
Totally. And we've always had that same kind of culture, right? That same kind of, have a good time, work hard, take your breaks, have honest conversation, be transparent inside of Vertafore. But I will say through the pandemic, what probably shifted most for us is we started talking about it more. Like we talk about it on our all hands. We have a refresh and recharge day now once a year, where it's just a new holiday and everybody is down, right? We've done some of those things. Just by talking about it has made it okay for people to raise their hand and say, hey, I need a break, right? I need to do something, you're pushing my boundaries, right? Like that's really important. And then what I encourage my team all the time is, work-life balance it's a misnomer a little bit, right? You create your own, nobody creates it for you. And so figuring out how to find that for yourself inside of the companies can support it, but you need to kind of make it a priority and find it for yourself too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just everyone obviously has their own style, and I think we obviously, much like many companies, are increasingly remote. But one thing that really I always keep in mind is the power of the human connection. It's really important, I think. And so I spend a lot of my time in front of customers externally, so I'm constantly on the road. I love meeting customers. Certainly if you want to reach out to me, it's jason.liu@zywave.com. Love to chat with customers and learn and exchange ideas. But internally, I've been on this, we were talking about it, we have teams all over the country and also in London and Asia. And so I was in Asia yesterday, just landed. Actually, I was in Asia last week and I just landed, and then I'm going to Europe on actually 6 o'clock tonight. So I'm obviously trying to go out and meet our employees and really try to make sure that we're driving the community and the energy. The only thing I'd add is I have this tradition at Zywave. It's for my own family, and we call it, Seth is here, we call it forced family fun. Basically we force ourselves to do cool, challenging, interesting activities. Maybe you don't get the initial cooperation, but eventually everyone enjoys doing it, and you have a fun with it. So I think creating that human connection is really a key aspect.
Yeah, something pragmatic we did is we started an internal staff group. Anyone can be on it, and they just talk about staff culture, what we could do. And it shocks me with some of the ideas that they come up with. It's like that, that's so simple and so basic. Of course we can do that, but you realize how meaningful it is to them. And of course balance that with the family life, work balance, encourage them to coach the kids' sports team and so forth. But we ask our team, we make them part of that process. How can we make this a better organization for you to work for?
Great, well listen, thank you all. I wanted to say a huge thank you to Reid, Taylor, Amy, Jason, Mike for coming out here. I know that you all have very busy schedules. I think this is super important to move the industry forward. I want to thank Jason for putting the event on, everybody for being here today. So that's it. That's wrapped up for the CEO panel. Thanks for your time and safe travels, everybody.
Big round of applause. Big round of applause. Thank you.